Nigel Farage and Megyn Kelly coming up this hour, but it's time now for The Clash. And as the UK confronts the harsh effects of the cost of lockdown crisis, imagine I told you that at present groups of eco-terrorists are mobilising in the shadows, getting set to make our lives even more difficult. Unfortunately, that's the grim reality facing ordinary Brits, with activists from the Animal Rebellion, Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion joining forces to launch a month of protest hell. Just look at this online Facebook event from Animal Rebellion, inviting people to take part next month in their biggest form of criminal activity yet. They write, "Join us at Green Park Station, London, to, quote, unleash playful disruption across the city. Arrestable and non-arrestable roles needed." That's right, these menacers are out recruiting individuals who are committed to breaking the law. The Facebook page also reveals this action will be taking place amidst the other protests of Just Stop Oil's Occupy Westminster and XR's Rebellion. Thousands of people will be taking action to the point of arrest in London this October, demanding government stop all new fossil fuel developments. And here's a reminder of what you can expect from this coordinated October of hell. Now, as I've been saying for months on end, if we want to stop these maniacs, then our justice system needs to give out much harsher sentences and stronger deterrents. So tonight I'm asking, as they plan a month of hell, should eco-terrorists be sent to jail? Let me know your thoughts by emailing dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me at gbnews, vote in our poll while you're there. But to debate this now, I'm joined by the founder of Protect the Protectors and Director of Law and Order Foundation, Norman Brennan, and two members of the campaign groups in question. Emma is a protester and spokesperson for Just Stop Oil, and Robert Gordon is a spokesperson for Animal Rebellion. So, Robert Gordon, why on earth are you advertising for people who are prepared to break the law?
Well, I think first we have to address the fact that we're doing this for a very good reason. We're in a climate and ecological crisis, and we're calling on the government with two very simple demands. Firstly, to support farmers and fishing communities in a just transition to a plant-based food system. And secondly, with all of the land that we would free up by doing that transition, for the government to rewild that land so that we can draw down carbon from the atmosphere, alleviate our climate crisis, and restore biodiversity.
I understand, Robert. You have a political act that you're trying to accomplish. You want to get there by breaking the law and launching violent attacks on Londoners. Now, that's terrorism, Robert. Do you understand that?
There's nothing violent about it. So we're a non-violent civil disobedience movement, and we're exercising our fundamental right to protest. But unfortunately, in Britain today, that means that people get arrested for doing that. So, you talk about scaremongering a lot on this show. That's what you're doing now. Our playful, disruptive protest that you read out about is just that. It's this harmless protest where we're voicing our demands to the government yet again because they're not listening, and you're trying to paint it as this criminal underworld.
Well, Norman Brennan, I mean, I'm sorry, people have been hurt. People could be killed by this form of eco-terrorism, right, Norman? Norman, people could be killed, couldn't they, by this sort of eco-terrorism?
I beg your pardon?
People could be killed, Norman, by this sort of eco-terrorism.
Oh, absolutely. As I said, I don't know what is playful about damaging property, damaging vehicles, disrupting Londoners, disrupting people on the roads, disrupting people travelling on transports and walking the streets. Everybody has got an issue. Millions of us have got an issue. And if we all took to the roads or to the streets and demonstrated in the way that we want for what we want, it would become a free-for-all. It would be anarchy, and it would be the law of the jungle. And it means that the toughest are the ones that get heard, and not only do they get heard, their demands are adhered to, and their demands will be stabbings, shootings, beating people up, robbery. That is what anarchy is. These groups, Dan, are domestic terrorists. They hold us to ransom. They think it's funny. I don't think it's funny, and nor do millions of Londoners and everybody else that are going through a dreadful time at this moment. And all we hear about is these groups demanding what they want. We've all got demands, but we have to keep within the law. And I believe that we need a robust policing. As soon as these groups take to the streets or the transport systems, they're arrested. They're taken to a police station, they are charged, the evidence is put before the magistrates, and we should say to the magistrates, do not release these individuals until they have paid for the damage that they've caused, then fine them, and then send them to prison for a sufficient period of time that they actually will start adhering to the law, because at the moment, they're lawless.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
We're talking about non-violent direct action here. It's very much not stabbing and shootings that you're trying to paint it out to be. It's going out into the streets and causing mild disruption. And if we want to talk about people dying, that's exactly what we're fighting against. We're trying to protect people from the climate and ecological crisis that is going to kill millions and leave between 1 and 3 billion people homeless by 2050. That's 1 in 3 billion.
I know, but I'm sorry, Robert. What Norman's saying is that if you start smashing up buildings, if you start willfully vandalising property, if you start gluing yourself to major roads, you might say that's playful. Actually, what we say is that is a slippery slope to anarchy. But look, I want to bring Emma in, who is a protester and spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Emma, firstly, what's your last name?
Why do you need my last name?
Well, we're all here, Emma, we're all here. We're having a debate. We're all out here. We're prepared to put our last names to what we're saying.
Brown, hello, Dunwooden. Pleased to be here.
Excellent. Great to have you there. Just wanted to clarify that, because otherwise it looks like you're almost embarrassed by what you're doing, which I assume you're not.
Of course not. Of course not.
So are you prepared to break the law in the same way that the Animal Rebellion group is?
Yeah, I think it's also important to clarify that the UK government are currently breaking their own legally binding targets. The High Court has found the UK government's climate strategy unlawful. And this was back in July when they were planning 40 new oil and gas fields. Now they're planning 130. This is genocidal. And unfortunately, Norman, our law is wrong because it does not punish the companies which are destroying and polluting the things that we need as people to survive. And that is why we have to break the law. The people who hit Anne Frank were breaking the law. The people who betrayed her were obeying it. The law is not above moral consideration. Sometimes the law is not fit for purpose, and that is what we are highlighting. We are accountable for our actions. We do get arrested. We do get put in prison. But the people that are making these decisions and the oil and gas companies and their CEOs, which have denied and delayed any climate action, they are not getting put in the dock, and that is what needs to change.
Norman, do you want to respond directly to that?
Yeah, I do. When I was talking about anarchy, I was talking about if all of us felt like these groups about the issues that concern us, then we all took to the streets. It's a waste of time having the police service because they wouldn't be able to control us. They can barely cope at the moment, and barely can they cope. They're taken away from other very serious and important issues to deal with these morons that do nothing but pontificate these outrageous figures of billions and millions, and in fact they take us to a stratosphere that I don't understand. The law is passed through generations, centuries.
Yeah. Well, let me just put that, Norman, I just want to put that specific point to Emma and Robert, because that's a very fair point, isn't it, guys? You must accept that at the moment there is a lawless problem on our streets. And your month of action, what it's going to do is divert massive police resources. How would you feel if a member of your family was violently mugged, was robbed, was stabbed, and the police were having to worry about your illegal action rather than actually solve those violent crimes, Emma?
Well, you need to take that point to the government because they need to meet our demand, which is no new oil and gas projects. What
Emma,
we are asking
do you
for is
realise
not
we're in the middle of an
right?
energy
We're asking for
crisis?
election. We're asking for cheaper public transport. We're asking for renewable energy. What is this mad anarchistic society that you're thinking that we're asking for? We're asking for basic things, and we're asking for, an energy system which does not cause people to be starving or freezing to death this winter. There are people in my community that have committed suicide because they're waiting to hear what the plans are about the cost of living crisis. This is not good enough, and it's happened throughout history that people have to stand up for their rights, Norman. And you need to go away. You need to look at what's happening with climate change, and you also need to look at the history of civil resistance. We did not get the vote from voting, Norman. We did not get the vote from voting. Have you heard of the Peterloo massacre? People have been voting.
But you have the vote. You have the vote, and we are a democratic society. So why don't you go and form a political party? Robert Gordon, I want to give you an opportunity.
We have not got time for that. We haven't got time for that. We have not got time for business as usual. We know that we need drastic, systematic changes.
Yep. Okay. Well, Emma, that's fine. I'm just going to point out that, yet again, what you were describing is the action of terrorists.
It's not, and you're doing a massive disservice to the people who have been affected by terrorism.
It is the definition of terrorism in the law.
Do not compare the damage of some billionaire profit companies' profits, the damage to property, to the damage to people's lives, to the damage of people in this country that are in fuel poverty, to the damage of 33 million people who've been displaced in Pakistan. How dare you compare us to terrorists? How dare you?
Well, I will, because I'm not just comparing you. Actually, by the letter of the law, what you are doing is the equivalent of terrorism. And I believe in a civil society, and I believe that the only way that we can move forward is if we follow the law.
For spectators, which is exactly what you're doing, Dan. It's what you disrespectfully did in front of Buckingham Palace by going to the reporter and saying, "Oh, do I look sad enough?" And it's what you're doing right now. It's what you're doing right now. You're
number one, Emma, you don't know what you're talking about because there was no reporter. There was no reporter. And if you want to try and grief shame me, go right ahead, because I have absolutely no regrets about my actions over the past 12 days. No regrets, Emma, whatsoever.
Come back. Can I come back?
Yes, please.
Dan, can I?
Yes, I'm just going to give a final word to Norman, then a final word to Robert. So very quickly, Norman.
All we hear about is ranters, ravers, screamers trying to distract us from the real issues. I'll tell you what we really need to do, and what I'm sure millions of members of the public that are seeing these moronic, selfish individuals, is why don't we gather them all up, super glue them all together, stick them in the back of lorries and take them into the middle of the wilderness and let them get on with their lives, while the law-abiding public and people that have got serious issues themselves that are not as selfish as these morons get on with their lives.
OK, final word to you, Robert Gordon.
Yeah, the climate and ecological crisis is the most severe issue all of us face right now. And what Norman's talking about there is violent, is anarchistic, and frankly unacceptable.
Yeah. And I don't believe in that for a single second. Absolutely, two wrongs do not make a right here.
Doing to protect police officers from the climate and ecological crisis, from crop failures, from temperatures that are simply unlivable.
Well, as you know, we are on a march towards net zero, and I believe we're doing far more than virtually any other country in the Western world. And just to bring some facts to the issue, the UK now responsible for less than 1% of carbon emissions. But thank you so much for the debate. That was the founder of Protect the Protectors and the director of the Law and Order Foundation, Norman Brennan. Just Stop Oil spokesperson Emma Brown, I believe she said, and the Animal Rebellion spokesperson Robert Gordon. Thank you all. So who do you agree with? Should eco-terrorists be sent to jail? Well, Sean on Twitter says absolutely they should be locked straight up, no matter whether it's Animal Rebellion, Extinction Rebellion, Insulate Britain or Just Stop Oil. From Angeli on Twitter, if they break the law, yes, otherwise no. How can you do that if they haven't broken the law? No, well, obviously we're talking about the people who break the law. And from Arn, yes, they're eco-terrorists. It's different doing placards and protesting. They're damaging farming and food infrastructure, our ability to produce our own energy, and championing cheap foreign imports with poor manufacturing standards because it makes us weak. And your verdict is now in. It's overwhelming. 96% of you agree that eco-terrorists should be sent to jail. Just 4% of you say they should not. Coming up, as the White House's COVID policy remains unchanged